Hello, this is the start of the show where I say who's on the show, and then I say it's time to stand up with Pete, and then I play music. Joining me today, comedian Christian Finnegan, writer, author, commentator, Wajahat Ali. I am Pete Dominic. It's time to stand up with me right now. See, that's how the show opening goes every day, and I'm very happy to have you joining me whenever you can and whenever you do. I want to start today just simply saying thank you to everybody in the stand-up community, and that is really everybody who listens to the show, but especially everybody who supports the show with a monthly subscription, because if you just listen to the show and you send a tweet or an email about anything you like, or just to let me know that you're listening or give a review to the show, whatever you're doing, you're contributing and you're helping me out as well. And if you pay for the show, well, then you're extra special, many of which, about 65, I think, folks joined us in the Thursday hang, which I'm going to make permanent at least right now. So unless I say otherwise, Thursday nights at 8, I will host a conversation. I'll try to invite guests to join me, but we usually hang out for an hour and a half or more. And then there was even an after party on Discord. Discord. I'm going to keep that misspeaking because people were making fun of me for bad edits on the show last night, in the hang last night, and it was hilarious. We had a great conversation last night. Thank you to Michael Cohen of the Boston Globe, who was our special guest. I'll play some of that next week, but it's always so great. Lots of folks being vulnerable, sharing what they're dealing with, because it seems like this is, well, it is definitely the most horrific part of the pandemic that we've seen so far. And we talked a lot about that mostly. And we also just had a really good time hanging out. So thank you to all of those of you that joined. If you are not a subscriber, we would love to have you and welcome you to our community. Just go to standupwithpete.com, standupwithpete.com, and join us now. All right, so first, we do have to talk about everything happening in the world of pandemic and COVID. Let's start, though, with the unveiling last night of Time Magazine's 2020 Time Person of the Year. Time put out a tweet of a short video of Bruce Springsteen announcing 2020 Time Person of the Year. Here it is.
Good evening. The events of 2020 have changed us in ways that were unthinkable until this year. A once-in-a-generation health crisis has rocked our lives while also demonstrating the resilience of the human spirit. A rallying cry for justice and equality has rung out around the world. And across the nation, a record number of Americans made their voice heard, making history along the way. For nearly 100 years, Time has named the Person of the Year. In 2020, the Time Person of the Year is President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris.
And with that news, I became very afraid, because what are you trying to do, Time? Get us all killed? What are they thinking, not naming Trump? He's still president. He could lose it on us. You must fear Donald Trump, Time Magazine. How dare you name Joe Biden and Kamala Harris? Fingers crossed for the next few days. Once he sees that, I'm very afraid. Also, Dr. Anthony Fauci is Time's 2020 Guardian of the Year. Portia Bennett Ray and racial organizers are Time's 2020 Guardians of the Year, and frontline health workers are Time's also 2020 Guardians of the Year. LeBron James 2020 Athlete of the Year, and if you care about the rest, then go to time.com. Okay, so that happened yesterday. Also, you know what else happened yesterday? Thousands and thousands of Americans died. The daily death count is among the highest in the nation's history, folks. 4 out of the top 10 deadliest events in American history were all within the last 10 days. 4 of the deadliest days of our country has ever seen. Over 3,100 people died 2 days ago, and we're getting close to 1 out of 1,100, 1 out of 1,100 Americans dead with COVID. More than 16,000 American COVID deaths reported in just the last week, a fresh record high hospitalizations and cases at fresh highs, too. Luckily, the good news is a vaccine did get approved yesterday and immediately began shipping out, and we're expected to have 20,000 Americans inoculated by the end of December, by the end of this month. Still, I'm sure, like me, you have a lot of questions about this vaccine. Once you're inoculated, are you still contagious if you carry the virus, and so much more. My friend Peter Hotez, who was on the show a couple weeks ago, was on Rachel Maddow's show on MSNBC last night. He's a vaccine scientist, pediatrician, author, and dean, and this is a little bit of what he had to say to her.
Well, I think it's really important to remember that we've never done this before. We've never done an emergency use authorization for a vaccine that's given to a large segment of the U.S. population, potentially up to 2/3 of the U.S. population or more. And so there's not a lot of precedent to go on. And remember the reason why we have to do this. The Trump administration never led a national response to COVID-19. And we're now at 3,000 deaths per day and climbing. And we could be looking at 300,000 deaths. Americans will lose their lives by next week, 400,000 by the inauguration, which is about the number of American GIs lost in World War II, and the numbers will climb from there. So that really backed us into a corner in the sense the scientific community that we had to put all of our eggs in the biotechnology basket. We now have to vaccinate our way out of this. We didn't have to necessarily get there, but here's where we are now. So as a consequence, how do you now balance what has been a very robust licensure process? The FDA probably has the greatest single track record on the planet in terms of releasing safe and effective vaccines for the public, a tried and true approach that usually uses at least a year of follow-up safety and data and efficacy data, and realize that if we were to do that, the loss of American lives would be absolutely staggering. You do the math, 3,000 deaths per day times almost a year, it's almost inconceivable. So that necessitated doing this emergency use authorization.
All right, Peter Hotez on Rachel Maddow's show last night, and the head of the CDC, guy named Robert Redfield, came out and announced yesterday that in the next 60 to 90 days, we're going to have more deaths per day than we had at 9/11 or we had at Pearl Harbor. More deaths per day, said the guy who didn't have the courage to take on all of his boss, Donald Trump's lies. Robert Redfield, not ever going to forget that name. Also, he told his staff to delete emails where Trump appointees had attempted to assert control over the CDC's scientific reports. So a CDC official told Congress that last week. So he's going to be in a lot of trouble, I would think, or I would hope, at least. I mean, someone is going to have to answer for this pandemic. And by the way, if you're at your breaking point, if you are feeling hopeless and depressed and scared and lonely, you are not alone. I mean, we are all really, really struggling, I think. I mean, I don't want to say us all, and maybe you're not, and you shouldn't feel guilty if you aren't, but a lot of people are. And I highly recommend that you reach out and connect with others and share that. We had such a great conversation with people last night, and you are so welcome to join us in that community. We'd love to have you joining us to talk about this and everything that you're going with and all of the issues that we're all dealing with, which is what we do here on this show and together. Okay, so I guess I want to move on past COVID right now and on to the other really important news story, which is that Mitch McConnell yesterday told House and Senate leadership that Senate Republicans are not going to support this $908 billion bipartisan coronavirus relief proposal. Senate Republicans have taken exception to the group's proposed combined $160 billion in state and local aid with temporary liability shield for businesses. So they're more worried about corporate liability and trying to crowbar tort reform in than the fact that Americans are going hungry. I mean, we are in the middle of the largest humanitarian catastrophe of our lifetime and of our parents' lifetime, I think it's fair to say. And the president is trying to get other Republicans to overturn the election. Right-wing media is obsessed with Hunter Biden's taxes, and Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell just said no to a COVID relief package. So if you're feeling worried and concerned and depressed, I get it. Yeah, I get it. It's rough right now. We're basically effed at the moment. But there are silver linings. We do have a vaccine approved. It does look really good. And Joe Biden will be sworn in as probably the 47th president, because the 46th president is going to be Mike Pence, so that he can pardon Donald Trump. And so technically he'll be the 47th, right? But if you're looking for something to do, if you want to try to create change, who knows if we can make this happen. But I think this is a really good idea that my friend Pam Keith came up with. And she's teamed up with Andrew Yang on this fantastic idea. I will try to get them on to talk about it next week. It's $1,200 for every American making under $100,000 for the next 6 months. Here they are introducing it.
Hello, I'm Andrew Yang. When I ran for president on Martin Luther King's idea of a universal basic income, a lot of people thought we couldn't make it happen. But now it's real. And we can see that a top-down economy has not worked at all. We need to build a bottom-up economy from the people up, from our families up.
Absolutely. And I'm Pam Keith. I've been working with Andrew because although all communities have been really hit hard by coronavirus, both in terms of loss of life and in terms of economic downturn, the African-American community has been hit the worst. It is suffering in so many ways. And this is a unique time in the history of our country and the history of African-American community, because everybody can see what kind of contribution we've made, both in terms of the election, but also in every other aspect of our economy. So for the first time in our lives, all of the leaders of the major African-American Christian denominations have come together to make one simple ask. And that ask is for $1,200 a month for everyone who makes less than $100,000 for 6 consecutive months.
That's the kind of help that we need right now. Imagine what it would mean to you and your family to know you have this lifeline that's going to come in every month for 6 months. You would breathe easier. You'd be able to put food on the table, and we'd have a future that felt secure for everyone.
Exactly right. We have tried the kind of stimulus, the PPP loans that so many small businesses couldn't even access. But what small businesses need right now is not more loans. What they need is customers with money to spend. And that's what this proposal will do. It will give people the comfort of knowing that they can spend their money in the economy.
So if you want to make this happen right now, sign the petition below. Make your voice heard. Let Congress know that we will not rest until cash relief is coming our way, your way, to us and our families. We can make it happen together.
Absolutely. Sign the petition and get behind the leaders of the Black community who are speaking with one voice. This is what the American people want.
This is what the American people want. Let's make it happen. Thank you so much. Thank you, Pam. You're a rock star.
Thank you, Andrew.
Well, I don't know if this is what all the American people want. I don't always like it when people say this is what the American people want. I'm sure there's a lot of disagreement about that, but it's certainly what this American wants. And if you want that, you can go to @PamKeithFL on Twitter or @AndrewYang on Twitter, or I'll just put a link to that petition in the show notes for today's episode. I think that's a great idea, and we'll hopefully be talking to them. I'll talk to them next week about this idea. In the meantime, Donald Trump still trying to overturn the election, and it got even worse because a new amicus brief was filed by 106 Republican House members in support of this stupid, awful, garbage, seditious, as Lieutenant Governor of Pennsylvania referred to it, lawsuit led by Texas's Attorney General to overturn President-elect Joe Biden's win in the Supreme Court. And the main question, of course, by the way, for these 106 Republican House members who've signed on to this Texas brief is, aren't they going to be overturning the results in their own states of their own elections? I mean, the logical question is, do you believe that your own elections are fraudulent? I think I read that from Sam Stein on Twitter, the writer, the political reporter at the Daily Beast. I think this tweet from Mother Jones reporter Ari Berman, who always nails it, @Ari Berman on Twitter, he writes, "We cannot normalize how totally insane it is that Trump, 18 state AGs, and 106 House Republicans still trying to overturn election 37 days after, when Biden won by 7 million votes, 306 electoral votes certified, Trump campaign lost 55 court cases and presented no evidence of fraud." That's right, Ari Berman. We cannot normalize this. Meanwhile, in Bizarro Land over on Fox Business, host and human meat sack Lou Dobbs lost his mind on Sidney Powell, who was one of Trump's former attorneys before she was even too crazy for him. And I don't know what she's doing now. But listen, as Lou Dobbs, you'll hear her start talking, and then Lou Dobbs just loses his mind and never even lets her speak again. I mean, it is corporate media. I mean, how does this guy have a show, though? Lou Dobbs is so far up Trump's ass. You could see his creepy eyes peering through that orange burger chute that Trump calls a mouth.
Yes, well, the American people are going to have to insist on paper ballots with real identification. That's going to be one of the key things.
Well, that's going to be great for the next. Sydney, I've got to tell you, I'm not even going to contemplate the next election. I'm not even contemplating the January 5th election in Georgia. The hell with that. If the people of Georgia are dumb enough, after what they have gone through in the November 3rd election, to then go toward January 5th and a runoff and think that changing nothing will change the outcome, then the people of Georgia aren't half as smart as I believe them to be. And I believe the patriots in Georgia should stop this nonsense now. It is not something that to be decided about over who do you favor, which party, which candidate. This is now about faith in the electoral system in one specific state that may control the destiny of this country. And by God, it's too important for anyone. And I don't care what party you're in. I don't care whether you're an independent. This is too important to act as if nothing happened on November 3rd and to pretend that there will be a different outcome on January 5th. It's idiotic.
You go, you fucking shithead, Lou Dobbs. Sorry for the language, folks, but come on. This guy is just too much. All right, so that's what's happening. Just one clip from Bizarro World. Alternative reality land. And one more clip I want to play for you, story I want to tell you about before we get to the news dump. I want to play for you a little audio from inside Federal Correctional Center in Terre Haute, Indiana, where Brandon Bernard has been sitting for 17 years after being found guilty of murder. He's now 40 years old, but he was one of 5 gang members convicted in Texas of killing Stacy and Todd Bagley, who were youth ministers back in 1999. The actual gunman was executed in September, while the other co-defendants were given lesser sentences. But here is Brandon Bernard talking about what it's been like for these past 17 years for him.
I'm locked up in my room 23 hours a day. And that's been the case for 17 years. I have learned to entertain myself, to keep myself motivated in here. And I've done all kinds of things. I read a lot. And I do crochet blankets and scarves, and I do hats, all kinds of things. It feels good to create something. I practice the guitar. I feel like I'm getting better, but that's up for debate. But I keep doing it. And I write, and it's just, I've taken a couple of college courses, writing course and stuff like that in order to just motivate myself to just change. You know, I don't have to be stagnant because I'm in here. I can always improve on myself. Maybe not as much as people in the world can, but still, there's an opportunity to improve yourself. And for that, I have to take for those that believe in me out in the world and for myself. And in being in here, one thing I've learned is that I have to do things for myself. When you try to do things for others, to try to appease others, it's not natural. And I feel like I've learned that these improvements I need to do for myself. So then they hold and they stand through the test of time.
Brandon Bernard was executed on Thursday night by the United States of America federal government at the Federal Correctional Center in Terre Haute, Indiana. And while I know I said, here's what it's been like for him, the other question and more important question is, what has it been like for his victims' families? Although he wasn't the gunman, he was there, he was part of it. The other co-defendants were given lesser sentences, but he was an adolescent when this crime occurred. And in his final words, he said, "I'm sorry. I wish I could take it all back, but I can't. That's the only words I can say that completely capture how I feel now and how I felt that day." The victims' families, the Bagley family, thanked President Trump and the federal government for carrying out the sentence, and also had their own statement saying, "I pray for Brandon and that he's accepted Christ as a savior, because if he has, Todd and Stacy, his victims, will welcome him into heaven with love and forgiveness." And here is one of the most amazing humans alive. If you're not familiar with her work, look it all up. Sister Helen Prejean, who has been an advocate, a staunch advocate against capital punishment, the death penalty, for years, tweets, "Today will be Brandon Bernard's last, no matter what crime a person has committed. The act of taking a healthy, breathing, conscious, aware being, strapping him down and snuffing out his life with a lethal injection is a stain on us all. We must learn to be better than this." The ACLU tweeted, "Our government killed Brandon Bernard tonight. Brandon mattered. The death penalty only perpetuates a cycle of trauma. We have to end it once and for all." And Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, for her part, just tweeted, "Abolish the death penalty." Just so shameful. And there's going to be more executions. And this is all because Donald Trump and Attorney General Bill Barr wanted to make it happen. And they can. Unfortunately, we've got to abolish the death penalty. All right, that is the opening news segment. Do that every day for about 15, 20 minutes. Play some clips, go through them with you, laugh, make fun of people and myself. And now it's time for the news dump, which I do every night as well, which is where I go through a whole bunch of stories that aren't COVID or directly, overtly, politically related, but are still important and often just interesting and entertaining. Time for the news dump.
They call them dumps, big, massive dumps.
All right, here we go. Let's start in Europe, where Axios is reporting that the UK and EU are bracing for a no-deal Brexit cliff as trade talks falter. Important story, and what does that mean? A lot of important consequences. One thing, I think, is that it's going to be hard for Brits to travel to Europe. Talks between each side will continue into the weekend. In Idaho, an Anne Frank memorial in downtown Boise was tagged with Nazi propaganda sometime between Monday evening and Tuesday morning. The memorial spans nearly an acre along the Boise River, situated in the heart of the community. A visitor was out for a morning walk through the park when they realized it had been vandalized. Idaho Anne Frank Memorial defaced with Nazi propaganda. I'm not even going to read what it says, but it's haunting and awful. And happy Hanukkah. I don't think I said that earlier. U.S. Jews are planning smaller Hanukkah celebrations amid the virus, reports ABC News. Jewish Americans from a variety of branches of the faith are celebrating Hanukkah with smaller than usual gatherings this year, looking to keep the year-end holiday safe, but still joyful as coronavirus case spike across the country. That is, the Associated Press reported on that. Variety.com is saying that the chief of the Grammy Awards is now apologizing to Tiffany Haddish, who is a comedian and actress, because they had invited her to host the Grammy Awards premiere ceremony, but she turned down the offer after being told she'd have to pay her own way. Yeah, they weren't going to pay her. What? Made me kind of feel bad because I've been offered some pretty important gigs from companies, organizations, and even people that have a ton of money that were like, just do it for free. You'll get the exposure. Now, you do your job for free, asshole. Speaking of entertainment business stories, Disney Plus. Do you guys subscribe to the Disney Plus? You watch the Mandalorian there? What else? Apparently, they're going to be increasing their prices in early next year, because everything's going so great. They're just going to raise their prices up. And they've done very good. They reached a new milestone of hitting 86.8 million paid subscribers. And also, thought this is a good story from Deadspin. Ben & Jerry's teaming up with Colin Kaepernick to Change the World. It's their new flavor. Today, the ice cream artisans announced a new flavor brought to you by Colin Kaepernick, who's still free agent. Kaepernick tweeted, "I've teamed up with Ben & Jerry's to serve up joy on the journey to justice. Today, we're excited to introduce Change the World, WHIRLED, a new non-dairy flavor that hit shelves in early 2021. 100% of the proceeds will go to At Your Rights Camp with matching support from Ben & Jerry's." And finally, here's a happy story from CNN.com. Over 900 cars paid for each other's meals at a Dairy Queen drive-thru in Minnesota. What started as a random act of kindness from one man paying for the car behind him in a Dairy Queen drive-thru resulted in over 900 cars also taking part in the Pay It Forward chain. Hey, I want to do that. We should all do that. That's a good one. Good one to end on. All right, that is your news dump brought to you by GiveWell. GiveWell.org/stand up. Go now and make a donation to my partner, GiveWell.org. If you want to save and improve lives the most, GiveWell. GiveWell.org/stand up. All right, let me get to my first guest. Joining me is two great friends of mine on the show today. Christian Finnegan joins me every Friday, and he is coming up. But right now, I want to share with you my most recent conversation with Wajahat Ali. He's an author who's just turned in his latest book. He's a contributing op-ed writer at the New York Times. His TED Talk has been seen by millions. He's a former CNN commentator. I met him at the Aspen Ideas Fest, and I absolutely love this guy. He's one of the smartest, funniest, most thoughtful people I know. He's on Twitter, where he's prolific at Wajahat Ali. And we start with Waj describing what he thinks my shed studio looks like with my pink lights.
It looks like an amazing 1978 lounge in Paris, where you go to after you've spent like the night doing debauched activities.
Just rails and rails of coke.
Yeah, the rails of cocaine that I do, of course, as a practicing Muslim who doesn't drink. I don't drink alcohol, but I do snort cocaine.
I actually wanted to ask you tonight about your relationship and history with alcohol. I seriously wanted to ask you all about that.
I have never, ever tasted alcohol in my life.
Well, folks, bring it in! Turn around, Waj. I sent some people over.
And this was the shortest conversation in the history of Pete Dominic's podcast. Tell us, how much have you drunk in your life? Never tasted alcohol, Pete.
So what is that all about? Is it all about religion or more?
I don't think so. Look, Muslims are people. They love drinking. So you'll see a lot of Muslims who drink.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, they'll say stuff like, yeah, I'm not supposed to drink, but whatever. God will forgive me. Of course, grew up practicing Muslims. That probably has something to do with it. But I remember I was in high school. And remember when you're in high school, your buddies like get liquor like early and they have no idea how to drink and like they overdrink and then they vomit?
Yes.
And so that happened in the parking lot. And my friend one time, Rod, just like, I got beer from my parents. And it just, he like really literally retched it all over my feet. And I just remember the smell and I remember the image. And then I think growing up, obviously I had opportunities to drink, right? I mean, you're in America, it's easy as hell. But there's just something about losing control.
Right.
There's something about like drugs and alcohol and a person like me. We've talked about this before. I'm convinced that if I ever did weed, I'd be like that paranoid guy who's like, they're coming to get me. They're coming, Pete. And I'll be like about to jump out of the window. And you'll be like the one trying to like barricade the window and drag me back.
I'm actually
that's my fear.
I'm going to get you high. And then I'm going to pay guys to dress up as like Homeland Security.
Yeah. They could come in. Like, and then for some reason they'll all have like stereotypical Arab accents. We know where you live.
No, they're going to be scary white guys, but they're going to have like silly fake mustaches. Just because you're high, it's going to be like, what is happening right now? Who are these guys? And is that a real mustache, sir?
That's the 80s porn mustache, the most terrifying.
So, the first time we drank, I actually didn't drink in high school. I've talked about it a lot. My brother was in rehab early and had an issue. I didn't have drink till I was like 22 or something. But the first time me and my friends all got alcohol and they all drank was when we went camping in the woods, like 14 years old. My buddy, like your buddy, drank too much. And he threw up, but he couldn't get out of his tent to go out to the woods to throw up. And he was sharing the tent with our other buddy. And he was like trying to get the zipper open, and then it just barfed all over the tent, just sprayed the tent.
And that barf smell mixed with alcohol, and then you're stuck. Oh man, I feel bad for your buddy.
They threw the tent in the garbage. They weren't even trying to clean it. They're like, that's it. That's always going to be the tent that you couldn't get out of and throw up in.
We're just going to be bear bait. The bear will come for us first.
Oh God, imagine being covered in your own vomit or somebody else's, and then being eaten by a bear.
Yeah. The bear looks like the most indiscriminating, bear, like the one, like the least discriminating bear on earth. He goes, it's okay. I don't mind some vomit.
Doesn't know. Yeah, he doesn't even know. He's like, ooh, dressing.
I know. And he goes, and then your friends are like, Pete, we gave you 37 seconds head start. Run.
So what about, who were you in high school?
I was a overachieving, dorky honor student kid who still somehow didn't get 4.0 because I was that guy who like could have been the smartest guy in the honors classes, but probably like was a little bit undisciplined and lazy and played video games. So I got like a 3.83 instead of a 4.0. But when I applied myself, I like kicked ass, if that makes sense. I was also like the smart aleck, and like slowly but surely, I was the guy who was able to get away with saying a wise ass quip and get the teacher to laugh with me and not discipline me, but also was smart and got the good grades and got the respect. I always skirted the line. I knew where the line was, and I always kind of became asymptotic to it.
I was the opposite. I was the wise ass mate. Everybody laughed. The teacher got it, appreciated it, but also it was disruptive, and I was also lowering the bar academically. So it was like, it wasn't great. I wasn't very helpful.
Yeah. So you were one of those who we were both late bloomers in many ways.
Maybe, yeah, I definitely was in a lot of ways. But no, I didn't care about school. I didn't pay attention to it. School for me was an audience. My 10th grade English teacher said, "Mr. Dominic, when are you going to grow up?" And I legitimately thought the right answer for me was never. The idea is to never grow up, sir. And he came and saw me do stand-up comedy like 10 years ago later and sat in the front row, and it was awesome.
Like I think we were same that way, because for me every day was an audience, right?
Yeah.
So at lunch, like I think I was my funniest in senior year lunch, high school, because we all used to sit on we used to call it the mountain. It wasn't a mountain; it was like a small little bump in the grass where we all used to sit. And ours was like
you
kind
would
of
go outside to eat because you went to high school in California.
Yeah. So we had sun, and we didn't know what the hell wearing a scarf meant. I didn't even know what the hell a scarf was.
Yeah, the rest of us
like
only knew about that because of like 90210. Like we didn't. The idea of going outside for lunch. I mean, certainly in Syracuse half the year was not a question. Anyway, you're out there in the grass your junior year.
So when we looked at you guys, and we're like, why are they wearing scarves? What grown man wears a scarf and a glove? What's this thing called snow? So we were out there, and my goal every day was to make at least one of my friends laugh so hard that they would like spit up milk or food. And that's what we used to do. And like that was my audience. Like my classroom was my audience. My teacher was my audience. I used to do like improv comedy. And so every day it was like lunchtime. I will just be relentless, and I'll somehow find a way to make my friend laugh. And I did.
I loved both making people laugh, so I never missed a day of school. But the other thing for me, I'm not going to lie, was like I was like stalkerish. Like I liked girls. There was like if I could go to school and be around girls and see certain girls, I would think about like a certain girl every day when I get ready for school. I'm like, oh, I hope she's there today. I'm going to wear this sweatshirt and I'm going to look cool. We used to wear rugbies. I'm going to wear this rugby. And so it was an audience, and it was just like to be there to flirt with and chase girls. Loved
and as it seemed,
never missed a day.
Changed. And I went to an all boys Jesuit Catholic high school. So I went to the school thinking, all right, like there will be no women, which will it won't be a distraction. And what happens instead is you just think about women all the time.
Yeah, I would imagine.
All the time.
Yeah, I would imagine it doesn't.
You're like, and then you become awkward and you have no idea how to talk to women. And then you get to college, and then you see your friends say all the outlandish, inappropriate crap. And then they just look at them horrified. And then you say, I'm not with him.
Wait, you were raised Muslim and went to a Jesuit high school?
I was raised Muslim, went to all boys Jesuit Catholic high school.
You sat there and beat yourself up every day?
No, I could still say the Our Father. To this day, I could drop an Our Father.
Is that really? Is that true?
Yeah. I crushed every semester. I've said this before. Every semester, if you ever go to Jesuit Catholic high school, those who are listening, either the sister school or the brother schools, they try to make you into Jesuits or they try to make you into nuns, but they do it like in a Trojan horse way. So it's like Christian morality or social justice or like Bible as literature. And so for me, I was like, oh, look at these stories in the Bible. They're very similar to the Quran. And I was so into it, I crushed. So the highest grade every semester was the Muslim. Dominating all boys Jesuit Catholic high school. And you just like Father Allender used to read out the grades with, you could hear his Jesuit heart cracking.
Plus you have an ethnic sounding name. So it's like not only is he Muslim.
Warbalat Ali with the highest grade.
Wow. Well, why did you go? Why did your parents send you to a Jesuit school?
Bellarmine is a good school. It's in the Bay Area. It was like a private school, but not really that pricey. It had a really good reputation for academics. It had a really good reputation for just cranking out good kids. The motto was "Men for Others." It's like, if many of the white Christians and Catholics in this country actually followed their religion, it's the ones who support Trump, they would actually, get along with the rest of us. I mean, it was like social justice. We had to do 100 hours of community service just to graduate.
Well, you said the ones who support Trump. I mean, like there are conservative Christians and evangelical Christians. I don't know what terms we want to use, but then there are Christians, Catholics who are more progressive. They're more socialist. They're more social justice based. And I wonder how you think about them and how you divide them, how you categorize or talk about them.
So the white Catholic majority still goes for Trump. White mainline Protestant still go for Trump. White evangelicals still go for Trump. Right. And so I'll be honest, like you look back and I see some of the teachers and like, it was actually a conservative place. Very great. I had a great time. They were very open with me. But it's like, I remember like abortion, big deal.
Back then. Yeah, of course.
Gay marriage, I think they've come around a little bit. I don't know if they're that friendly with Muslims, but, it had to do with class and whiteness. And I was in the Bay Area, so a lot of my friends were like Asian American and Latino and South Asian, right? So because there was so much racial diversity, I think they had to contend with it, and they did a pretty good job. And so I actually do not stereotype like all Catholics are like this, because I had such a good experience with it. And I've seen Catholics of color against Trump, right? I've seen many Catholics who take their religion so seriously stand up for women's rights, to stand up for literally the DACA kids, to stand up for
Joe Biden's a Catholic.
Yeah, and Joe Biden's a Catholic, and you can see him literally like, we got to end the zero tolerance policy. Day one, I'm gonna end the Muslim ban. And so what I've always said, and I was just telling someone this yesterday, like it just kills me that progressives in particular and Democrats have this weak spot where they have ceded the ground of religiosity and religious language and faith to the right wing, who have deftly and cynically manipulated it to win over so many people of faith who, honestly, if Democrats did intelligent outreach, you can win them over.
I disagree.
You don't think you can win them over?
I think they haven't ceded the ground. I think that it wasn't something that you thought. Progressives generally aren't going to hit you over the head with their religion and live, by this dogma, because they want everybody to be welcome. And so at a certain point, when the religious right really, gained strength with the Billy Grahams and then the abortion movement and so on, I think that the religious right, along with the media that went with it, came up with these wedge issues and were really just pounded them all the time and based them in faith. And they just talked about their faith. And so much and used it so much, even, to go back and obviously defend slavery and all kinds of other horrific things. They used their faith. And I think when you say ceded, I wonder if what they could have done, it just wasn't in their nature. Or if you're going to maybe say, what could they do now? What could progressive Catholics do now in terms of using their religion to somehow affect change or create a different paradigm to argue about? Because it's just the way that the conservative right, the religious right, uses it is just so divisive and so stupid. And so it's like, if you're a progressive Muslim, as you're talking about, or any other religion, Jewish or Christian, you're welcoming all the other religions. If you're a conservative Christian, you're using it and saying only my faith is the right faith, is the American faith, and all that shit.
So you said it's not in their nature, and I think that's accurate, right? Just the use of religious language, the use of religious values.
It's divisive. It's not in their nature to use it divisively. So how do they use it to be inclusionary?
And so what's happened, the reason why I say they ceded the ground is because at the same time, the experience of having religion in politics is often such a negative one for so many folks, right? That they're like, organized religion has been used as a sword, not as a shield. And we don't want that type of white Christian supremacy within our progressive circles. Let's be honest. But what they don't realize is these wedge issues are so powerful. I'll give you a quick example. They say now 65% of Muslims voted for Biden, 35% went for Trump. And people are like, that's impossible. Like my Muslim friends are saying, I don't believe it. There's no way. And I said, I totally believe it. Having conversation with some Muslims, guess what their like one issue is? They go, you know what? All of them are
Mexicans.
Corrupt. Both sides. I'll get to that. Yeah. All of them are corrupt, both sides. But you know what? At least the Republicans, they believe in God. And you know what? I'm not for gay marriage and trans rights. And this is too much for me. And so I'm just going to vote. Boom. I'm going to vote Democrat. What I'm saying is Republicans have cynically and definitely used religious language, and these wedge issues to pilfer out Black people, some Black Protestants, some Latinos, as we've seen, and some Muslims, right? So if progressives, to answer your now question, made outreach, like active outreach to Catholics, Muslims, Latinos, and said, we actually take faith seriously. We're not going to mock it and ridicule it. Look at Joe Biden. He's a Catholic. And using religious language, we actually appeal to you for your social values where we can unite around social justice. If they just did that, Pete, I'm telling you, you can take a few of these percentages from Muslims, from Jews, from Latinos, from African-American voters, and up the ante. Because right now, the ground has been very carefully and deliberately fertilized for the past 40 years by the religious right that you and I know is mainly a supremacist ideology for their team and their team alone.
Yeah, well, that's, I think, the better point that I should have made more is that the difference between conservative Christians, and that's who really we're talking about. You mentioned Muslims and Jews who might have, voted for Trump and so on, but conservative Christians are really what we should talk about when we talk about religious Americans, because they're the only ones that have power. No other religious people have power in government, but conservative Christians, I mean, I'm going to just generalize and argue that they don't believe in democracy and they don't really believe in our form of government. And they believe in theocracy. They believe that their religion, there should be no line between religion and state. And by the way, they used to argue that they didn't believe that. They obviously clearly believe that overwhelmingly now. They're constantly making laws that they say are based on their religion when they cherry pick about the religion. Anybody can do that, by the way, I suppose. But progressive Christians or other religions believe in secular government and not influenced by, and their religion, as Joe Biden will say, is personal to them. And that's why they can't really use it, because they don't think that government, that laws should be informed by their religious beliefs, because for obvious reasons. And so it's so much harder for them to use it, though. I see what you're saying, and I think that it would be effective to pick some people off, but it's the way that you talk about your religion and what it really means. But it's also, I feel like, the way that we should just talk about civics and the Constitution and government not being informed by and influenced by your religion. That's what bothers me most as a secular person.
Yeah, so it's two things. Is first and foremost, we kind of are illiterate in this country about a lot of communities that exist in this country. We're culturally illiterate.
Yeah, including me.
Yeah. And so I've always said, as a beneficiary of growing up in the diverse Bay Area and going to all boys Jesuit Catholic high school, it didn't transform me into a Catholic, right? I didn't become a Jesuit, but that information, that knowledge, that culture, like having friends, it just makes you a more aware, astute person, right? Number one.
Of course.
It helps build experiences. It doesn't mean you jam any religion down anyone's throat. No, it's like, oh, this is why this Muslim friend of mine is celebrating Ramadan. Oh, today's the first day of Hanukkah, right? Happy Hanukkah, which is literally today, right now, as we're recording, I think is the first night of Hanukkah.
Yeah, I just sent a bunch of Bitmojis. I just went through my phone.
So it makes you more aware, it makes you informed, and this is something we all have to work on. But what you're talking about, I agree with. It's white Christian supremacy. And Robbie Jones came out with a really good book a couple months ago called White Too Long. Robbie Jones, who runs PRRI. And he talks about, he talks about the history of how religion has been deliberately used and weaponized for white supremacy in this country. And the end result of it is right now, look at 2020, where you have Bill Barr, who, as the Attorney General, gave these kind of terrifying speeches at the University of Notre Dame and the Federalist, where he literally talked about the secularists taking over and how we have to protect ourselves against the secularists. Then you have literally Mike Pompeo, our Secretary of State in his official capacity talking about the rapture. Now we have, as of today, there's 18 Republican AGs and about 100 plus, about 25% of House Republicans who are perfectly fine in Donald Trump's coup attempt, literally taking a sledgehammer to democracy. Yeah. And his constituency, his main constituency is, again, these white mainline Protestants and white evangelical Protestants who have rationalized all of it because they believe they're in a zero-sum game where the secularists, that's you and me, are literally trying to take away their identity, their religion, their freedoms. And so the ends justify the means. And Donald Trump, who is the most pharaonic type of man imaginable, right? The greatest Pharaoh wannabe president that we've ever seen, a hedonist, they say, oh, he's God's flawed instrument, like Cyrus, the pagan king. And so we have to acknowledge that we're dealing with a wannabe theocracy, a wannabe supremacist movement, not wannabe, a supremacist movement, which is a white Christian movement, but they're able to pick off some black and brown voters because they speak the religious language. And so we have these two-pronged problems here. We have to deal with this extremist counter-majoritarian force. And let's be honest with it, a part of that base is white mainline Protestants and white evangelical Christians and white Catholics. And at the same time, they have kind of manipulated religion and language to win over some Latinos and Muslims, Jews, and black voters. And Democrats, I think, at least on the latter part, have an opening. The former part, I don't know, man. The former part, I think we have to treat them like an extremist hostile minority. I've said this before.
I agree with that. And by the way, you mentioned this Robbie Jones. I wasn't familiar with that book, White Too Long, but let me just throw out two other books that touch on a lot of what we're talking about from this past year. Sarah Posner's Unholy.
Great book.
Catherine Stewart, The Power Worshippers Inside the Dangerous Rise of Religious Nationalism. Both great books. Both authors join me here on the show if people want to go search the archives. What do you make of what's happening right now? You've been tweeting about this, and everybody's pretty. We've seen these lawsuits. It's been over a month since the election. It's a done deal. We've seen no fraud. There's been a ton of obviously investigation. There's been recounts. There's been 40 lawsuits thrown out, and then this final lawsuit seems like a final attempt brought by 18 attorneys general, not attorney generals, attorneys general. Nailed it. Led by the Texas Attorney General, guy named Ken Paxton, who's a real life criminal, apparently. And some people are saying this is how he's trying to get his pardon. He's doing some work for carrying some water for Trump. But it's really interesting to see some conservatives and conservative AGs, including from Ohio, saying, listen, you can't overthrow our elections. We're not going to come into your elections. But what do you make of this garbage lawsuit, this last attempt, and the fact that a huge percentage, the vast majority of Republicans that still call themselves Republicans and Trump supporters are completely on board with it and don't think that Joe Biden won?
The GOP is an extremist counter-majoritarian force that is actively hostile to democracy. The sooner that we, the majority, acknowledge it, the better that we can deal with it. And I've been saying this for 4 years. I've been saying this on your show. I've been trying to tweet it every day until Joe Biden wins, because every day brings forth new evidence. I see zero evidence whatsoever that the GOP, the entire right-wing infrastructure, the funders, the media, the political players, has in any way, shape, or form moderated. Instead, like you said, there's 18 attorneys general, and a quarter of Republicans in the House, by the way, have signed on to this Hail Mary BS lawsuit that is basically, literally, a attempted coup. Donald Trump, for the past year, not just even before the election, Pete, I just want to remind people, this man was impeached. Why? Because he abused his power to try to get a foreign country to interfere in the election. He put in his puppet, DeJoy, as Postmaster General to take a hatchet to the USPS because he knew people would be using mail-in ballots during a pandemic. They tried to remove ballot boxes to make it harder. They're trying to do this right now.
The appointed Supreme Court justices, he hoped at least, would eventually.
Right. So what are we witnessing? We're witnessing an attempted coup. Yeah. We're witnessing an attempted coup. Yeah. This is what happens in authoritarian regimes. And thank God he's a moron and he's incompetent and there's enough guardrails. And thank God there's just enough Republicans willing to put country above party. But the fact that you got 18 attorneys general, a quarter of Republicans, the fact that only 24 Republicans, when the Washington Post a few days ago asked them, hey, who won the election? only 24 said Joe Biden, only 24 out of like 200 Republican officials. What this shows you is that we have a very rough road ahead in our country. How does Joe Biden negotiate with extremist Republicans in the House and Senate? Someone asked me that question. And secondly, what evidence can anyone give me, and I would love to hear this, that the Republican Party in the past 4 years has moderated? Because the last time I checked, they're helping with a coup. They don't acknowledge that Joe Biden won. They're praising Kyle Rittenhouse a murderer. They believe in the deep state conspiracy theory. And apparently they're perfectly fine with Donald Trump sucking up to Putin as he puts bounties on our soldiers. This is the present and future of the Republican Party. I think they're going to further weaponize and radicalize. And we need a mass de-radicalization movement. And I feel like if you can crack down on Facebook and Twitter and Google, first and foremost, to help with disinformation, followed by some countermeasure or proactive measure for messaging to at least not neutralize, but you want to basically treat it like a virus, Pete. I was thinking about this a lot. Contain and inoculate. Contain the extremism and inoculate the majority. Contain and inoculate. That's, if I had to do a strategy, that's what I would do. How do you contain the damage? How do you contain the extremism? How do you contain the disinformation and inoculate and grow out the majority?
Well, I don't know how you do it, but the one way to do it around the edges is to somehow regulate media. And what YouTube is doing right now, what Facebook has made an effort, we could bash Facebook all day, but they have done some things, not nearly enough. What Twitter has done, that goes a long way, but it doesn't stop Sean Hannity from 3 hours of radio, Rush, 3 hours of radio, Levin, and then, you know, the young guns and the conservative extremist conspiracy movement. Your what's his name? The Orthodox Jewish kid, Shapiro.
Daily Caller, Shapiro, right.
Yeah, Don Bongino, and then on TV as well. I mean, those guys don't stop saying whatever they want to say with no truth behind it to get ratings, to get subscriptions, and to sell advertising. And I don't know how that's always been the problem, Waj. The Republicans in the House, in both the state House and in the federal government, they don't know anything about government. They know nothing. They are so radicalized by people that they heard on the radio. Democrats, progressives, not even remotely close. They don't grow up listening to a radio station. They're not influenced by Rachel Maddow. They're policy experts and you know, practitioners. And it's just there's no comparison. I think we're becoming more influenced by media on the left, no doubt, but it's still based on the best science, for example, if we're talking about climate change and COVID, or economic theories that are, you know, clearly borne out and more equitable. And then you have an extremist party, an extremist movement that is, it's so extreme that they don't even believe that a thing that happened. That's where they're at. We used to argue about the size and role of government, tax policy, and the Constitution. They don't believe a thing that happened just now in front of us actually happened. What do you do with that?
We're dealing with a radicalized movement, and I'm glad you mentioned Rush Limbaugh because I have to...
Medal of Freedom winner, Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah, Medal of Freedom winner, Rush Limbaugh, who just today on his show said, we can't deal with these liberals, we have to secede. So here's Rush Limbaugh, who won the Medal of Freedom.
I thought he walked it back. He said it yesterday, and then today I heard he walked it back a little bit.
Advocating secession.
I didn't mean that we should secede.
That's good. That's a good Rush Limbaugh. Yeah. And so what we're dealing with is once you eliminated the fairness doctrine, which was one of the wishes of the Republicans in the 80s, you saw the rise of this right-wing media ecosystem. And like you mentioned, they dominate. Bongino, Shapiro dominate on Facebook. Podcasts, they dominate. Radio, they dominate. Fox News, dominate. And if you have conservative friends who don't have horns on their heads, they're fellow. This is what I feel really bad about. Conservative voters, right? Like you said, all right, we disagree on tax policy. We can have an argument about debt and deficit. We could talk about trade. We could talk about national security, immigration. Fine. But now we're dealing with conservative voters who've been radicalized in a right-wing media ecosystem, which is a closed information loop. So they go from podcast to radio to Facebook to online magazines to Fox News, where they literally hear the same message repeated 24/7. And it's fear and it's loathing and it's all about us versus them. And you sit in that ecosystem and that swamp, and the books are out there. It literally radicalizes people to the point where a majority of Trump voters, like you said, think that the man who won by more than 7 million votes, Joe Biden, did not win the election. Yeah. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, an anti-Semite, racist, Islamophobe, and a believer of the QAnon conspiracy theory, is now a Republican congresswoman representing the glorious state of Georgia. So unless I agree with you, man, unless we find a way to crack this disinformation bubble, maybe we bring back the fairness doctrine.
Because that was for radio and TV, and now there's no way to regulate podcasts and YouTube channels.
But you need to. So this is the thing. Two things: Facebook and Google, all these big tech companies, they bend according to who's in power. Number one, and I believe you gotta keep making them bend more and more. They can do a lot more. Number one, it won't be everything, but if you can find a way to get disinformation on social media platforms under control, I know it's a big ask. It'll do a huge service of de-radicalizing certain segments of this country. Secondly, Democrats need to be more bold and proactive in their messaging. You need to reach out. You need to knock on doors. You need to go to different communities. You can't just ignore Latino communities. You have to come up with the better podcasts, better radio shows, better messaging. Democrats, you know this. Come on, they uniformly suck at this. And not only that, the final thing I'll say is, and I know this is the controversial saying, but I've said this all the time, is that Democrats bring a policy paper to a knife fight. Mitch McConnell brings a bazooka.
Right.
You cannot negotiate with extremists. So where is the balance where, okay, you don't go in the gutter, right? Because you have to maintain some ethics, some rule of law. You have to prove to your kids you're not a monster. But at the same time, you have to fight. You have to fight with people who are extremists. And that's where I'm a little bit worried about with the Joe Biden administration, just based on how Joe Biden is, because he wants to be the guy who goes, I know these people. I know Mitch. I've been here for 40 years. These guys are from Scranton. And we're like, Joe, this ain't your Scranton anymore. These are folks who literally believe that me and Pete are stealing children and eating them for dinner.
Well, there's some truth. There's a grain of truth to that.
Yeah, Pete has one infant a week. That's on Meatless Mondays.
Oh.
Too soon.
No, too soon. It's not too soon. It's just. So let me ask you one more big question here, which is about the other obvious, huge, important issue that we've been locked in our homes for, it'll be a year or so in March. Yeah. And, how we're doing collectively. Obviously, you've had a really interesting perspective having your daughter who had a liver transplant. And obviously, you have to be extremely careful in your family, which is why I was surprised to hear that you were at Bed Bath & Beyond. But we can put that aside.
I was not.
But you were candle shopping. Were you not candle shopping?
No. I went, wore a mask and went to Legos to pick up a Lego toy for my son, for myself also, the Ghostbusters toy, which is amazing. And they have limited capacity, so only 2 or 3 people allowed in the store. And then I took my mask and walked past. And as I was walking past to my car, I saw this big ass line. And I'm like, and I asked someone in the line, I'm like, what's this line about? And they're like, Bed Bath & Beyond. And then I tweeted, why is there a line at Bed Bath & Beyond? And I had 700 people reply, the candles, man, the $9.99 candles. Yeah. And I'm like, I learn new things every day. Candles are a big deal in America.
Yeah, it was just a couple days before that where I started inquiring about candles because I was like, I think I'm going to get into them. I like them for the shed here. But no, I wanted to just ask you what you thought, in terms of the outlook and the handling of COVID as it's now. It looks Waj, like it's going to be. What are the words that you would use to describe it in terms of how bad it's going to be over the next 6 to 8 weeks, especially?
I'm trying to
3,000. Yesterday we lost more. It was one of the worst days in American history yesterday, but it just seemed for a lot of us like it was Wednesday because it's been happening.
I think what I've used to describe it, of the words I've used to describe to my friends, is a death wave. It's going to be a rain of death. I've used, people 2 weeks ago said, Waj, you're always a cynic. And I said, listen, my daughter has been immunocompromised. My wife's a doctor. She called this early on in January. She said this country is not prepared. She said everything's going to shut down as a result of not only just my daughter's health, but also being a journalist and doing some, research on this. We've been kind of on top of it. And I remember all my friends, educated friends, said, no, Waj, it'll go away by the fall. I'm like, nope, call it November. We're going to have 200,000 deaths. This country is not going to mask. It's not going to social distance. It's not going to lock down. Then you see the weaponizing of masks, the attack on Fauci, the attack on science, the attack on scientists. You see the Dakotas now literally just a cemetery.
There's nobody left. Everybody's dead in South Dakota.
There's 14 people, and now there's 2.
It's seriously such a low. It's like 1 in. I forget what it was. have contracted COVID.
One in 150. In 150, it's like 1 in 150 people have died, right? And so you see Kristi Noem, the governor, in September, she released a video when it came to social distancing. And you know what her video was all about? Her trying to shoot a bird. Because this is how we social distance in South Dakota. And so a part of me as an American sees this rain of death that could have been avoided. And it crushes me. I also know that we're America. We're just not going to get this under control. But everyone who's listening, if you just wore a mask and social distance, if everyone wore a mask, we can literally get this thing under control in a month. In 1 month, we could get this under control. And I remember I told my wife 2 weeks ago, as some of my friends, my educated friends, were flying across the country for Thanksgiving, I said, just watch. I just said it. I have all my WhatsApp messages. My friends are like, you're the cynic. I said, we're going to hit 3,000 by this week. We're going to hit 4,000 by next week.
400? You mean, or a day? 3,000 a day?
Yeah. And this is going to be the death wave that we have to survive until February. And to answer your question succinctly, I just turned down an invitation from a friend. He said, let's social distance. Let's all meet outside. I said, my wife and I are not doing nothing until middle of January because we don't trust our friends, because we found out that some of our friends flew during Thanksgiving or are like having indoor dining. And now you're seeing like people finally, what happened yesterday? A report came out that said indoor dining is dangerous for coronavirus because it spreads like 20 feet, right? And so you have people literally eating inside restaurants, and I've been trying to beg people not to do that. And I think we're gonna be met with a lot of deaths, Pete. This is going to be a difficult time for America, especially the next 2 months, because Christmas is coming up and the New Year is coming up, and people are not going to be safe and responsible. And then you're going to see the wave of death hit again in January 15th. And so I think until February, we're going to be locked down. And I think the last thing I'll say is that the estimated death rate as of now by April 1 is around 550,000 Americans. That's 500,000 Americans, the largest number of any country in the world. And if only we had a stable leader and an information network and media ecosystem that valued lives over politics, so many people would have survived.
You know, we mostly do, though. That's what's interesting. We do so much. We have so many effective leaders and governors and mayors. We have so many that have people, armed protest at their house now because they're doing the right thing. We have so many, I think, great people in the media, including our friends at CNN and MSNBC, The Atlantic, New York Times, and so on. But it's not enough, I think is what you're saying. There's too many people that just don't care. America, land of the free, home of the brave, every man for himself.
Yeah. And this is God's country. And that's what Jesus said. That was his sermon. The principal tenet of Christianity is every man for himself and an eye for an eye. Now let me multiply these fish and loaves and give it to these poor worthless people who don't pull themselves up from the bootstrap.
Lazy these people.
They want loans and they want welfare. Look at me. I worked my way to become a prophet.
You too can become a prophet. Just buy my new tape.
Yeah. Buy my new tape and speak in tongues.
All right. Well, I want to talk to you as much as possible over this period of time because it makes me happy. I think that one thing I'm really trying to do a lot more of and talk a lot more about is men of a certain age connecting and communicating, even without the pandemic. A lot of us have learned, this because of pandemic, reconnecting with old friends and so on. But I'm doing my best to connect men, especially, and women. Certainly with the stand-up community, we've got a diverse community. But whenever I talk to you, I get real excited. I just feel so connected to you. I know I'm going to laugh. I'm going to learn. I'm going to care about this person and everything that this person has to say. And it just makes me feel so good. And I think we just need to do that. You and I always record these conversations, but we just need to spread this as much as we can and connect with people as much as we can over the next 4 to 6 weeks because it's so scary and depressing.
Likewise, and I appreciate that. I think we need, we're human beings, and no matter how brilliant you are, no matter how tough you are, no matter how strong you might think you are, we're sensitive and we're fragile, right? And this is a scary time where there's something sobering about learning that 3,000 Americans have died in a day. And that's not going to be the worst of it. And so we're heading to a new year where a person makes a resolution. And for many people, the resolution just to stay alive. And we're going to Christmas where we won't be able to meet our family. And my parents are old. They're still alive. I haven't met them in a year.
Mine too.
And so I think it's important, especially for men. I know we've discussed this. We're not a species that is encouraged to talk about our feelings or to be sensitive, but there's something very humbling and tenderizing about this pandemic. The last thing I'll say is I remember it was my 40th birthday, like on November 1st, my wife surprised me. And like, it was, she opened up the computer. She said, "Oh, say hi to this person." I'm like, "Say hi to who?" And I saw like 80 boxes. And like, there's all these people from my past that she brought on. And I was like, look at that. All these people. I didn't know I had 80 friends. And all these people, they stayed on this Zoom call for an hour, just wishing me happy birthday. And it was like really nice to reconnect and see that, you know, we're part of a community, whether we acknowledge it or not. So I think everyone at home, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. But the reason why we social distance and the reason why we wear masks and the reason why we're asking everyone to sacrifice is so we can stay alive to celebrate future Christmases and New Year's with our loved ones.
It's worth it.
And I think none of us will forgive ourselves if we knew that we, in our well-intentioned recklessness, we somehow caused the death of a loved one or a family member. Yeah. I think that will be something that will stick with us for the rest of our life. So this is why we do what we do. And in the meantime, any avenue you can find to share your thoughts and fears and love with someone, please do.
Yeah, and just to have fun, just to shoot the shit too. It helps. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, man.
All right. There he goes. There he goes. Hope you enjoyed that. I always love talking with Waj. She's on Twitter at Wajahat Ali. Go tell him. Go tell him right now if you're on Twitter. Every time I see those you guys tweeting, it's often the same people just reaching out to guests and thanking them. But it is really appreciated. It lets them know that there are lots of people listening to the show and appreciate what they have to say. And he certainly is one of those guys to appreciate. Follow him on Twitter, and I'm really excited for his new book. Okay, now joining me in my second guest of today's show, he's here every Friday, is an old friend of mine who I started out in the comedy clubs of New York City with and have grown up and old together with. He is one of the funniest, smartest guys. I like to call him a cultural commentator because he's so good at explaining things and putting things into important perspectives. And he is a really well-respected comedian in the comedy community. He was on The Chappelle Show and VH1's Best Week Ever. And he was on a sitcom with Ice Cube and so much more. He's done several comedy specials, including on Comedy Central. He has several comedy albums. Go to ChristianFinnegan.com, on Twitter at Christ Finnegan. Here is the always great, one of your favorites, Christian Finnegan. There he is, everybody. We're going to do it, as we always do it, with the great Christian Finnegan, my regular Friday guest, and I'm very happy to see you. Are you in the country or in the city? Where are you?
I am in the country.
You got the dogs?
I'm sure people who actually live in the country would not call this the country.
Why do you say that?
It's the country.
You're in the country. You're up. You're in the mountains. Really. You're in the Catskill
County. I'm in the Catskills. Yeah. It's rural, but it's we're still 2 hours from the city. It's not like we're.
Who's a person there that you've met? Do you have a best friend up there? Do you have any friends? Have you met people that you socialize with up there that are exclusive to that area?
The only people that we socialize with are two friends of ours from New York who also have a house.
Because how do you meet people up there?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not really, my wife has friends. My wife meets people all the time. She's super social and she's a good human being. And I'm not, I'm a very hermetic kind of dude.
Yeah.
And I don't, I don't socialize. I'm not good at friends really. I'm not, but we have a couple friends who live in Brooklyn who bought a house up here about a year ago. And so we hang out with them occasionally. But other than that, I'm all here by me lonesome. My wife's in the city right now. And so it's just me and one of my dogs up here by ourselves right now.
What have you been up to? Are you keeping busy? Everything all right? This is a real weird time. As I was telling you before we started, things that are happening. Like I don't know how. There's no scientific way to measure it, but we've done enough. We've had it. We're not equipped.
People
we're not
are going
prepared.
a little nuts right now.
Yeah,
and I think I wonder how much of that will get better or worse after the holidays pass. I think that with the holidays upon us. The isolation feels more arbitrary and more cruel. And I think instinctively want to rebel against it more.
That's interesting.
Because this is the time when you're supposed to be doing things. You're supposed to be seeing family. You have your office party. You have Thanksgiving and then Christmas and shopping and all of those things. And it feels really cruel to forego all of that especially after, 9 months of foregoing everything. I'm hoping, I think January and February are going to be pretty bad for our health and whatnot, but I'm hoping that people will kind of settle back into being in the house, doing puzzles and, binge watching.
I think the thing that is strangest about right now is when in human history, certainly in American history, has there been a horrific, shocking disaster, either a natural disaster, a shooting, a mass shooting, or even like an assassination of some high profile person, or even like a natural, like a Kobe Bryant died, and the kind of pallor that brought the country. And to me, it's just so hard because right now, yesterday, more people died in America, over 3,000 than it was like the worst single day death in American history. It was up there. And
I think it was number one.
And our president isn't even barely acknowledging it. And it's a weird thing. And I don't want to just sit here and be anti-Trump. It's not even about that. It's just this idea that a horrible thing has happened. It's not unlike, by the way, Russian interference in the 2016 election. We were attacked and he didn't do anything about it. He didn't care. People are dying and the leader of the country isn't even acknowledging it. And it's a weird thing that we're all living this, and our leader and many others who follow him are in denial about it. And it's just so different than, say, Sandy Hook shooting or 9/11, where the country kind of was all oh my God, this horrible thing happened.
Well, I guess because,
and our leaders acknowledged it. And
yeah, but those other instances were very acute, and
this one's
people died at the drop of a hat,
right.
And they were, in Sandy Hook's case, children and whatnot. Whereas this is kind of just a rolling malaise. It's like a hurricane that has slowed to 1 mile per hour and is just sitting on top of us for an extended period of time. And so I think that a lot of us, who aren't anti-maskers and are responsible, still have sort of cultivated a sense of stoicism about this, that you can't really, that keep calm and carry on thing. The British attitude during World War II is that you can't really be at a fever pitch about this on a day-to-day basis. You have to kind of just keep going. And weirdly, I think even the anti-mask people are trying to do the same thing. They're just sort of taking this as this is going to happen, whether regardless of what we do, and I'm not going to run around with my hair on fire. The difference is that there's actually things you can do to mitigate this. These people act like this is a fait accompli. There's just that nothing we do is going to change, similar to the way people act about climate change. It's just it's going to happen whether we do anything or not. So I'm just going to go ahead and live my life. Whereas that is not true about climate change. And it's even less true about this, is there are very tactile things that people can do to make this less awful. But the idea of even attempting to mitigate the awfulness has been politicized.
Yeah.
Even trying to make things better is a political stance, which is bizarre. It's so strange.
I know, but I think
it's like if the house was on fire and you decided to exit the house so you didn't burn alive, that would not be thought of as a political act.
Well, yeah, but staying with your metaphor, the point I didn't quite make as succinctly as I wanted to is if the house is on fire and the chief of the fire department was outside the house doing a press conference about a tree, a cat he got out of a tree earlier. That's what Trump is doing. He's ignoring it, and he's talking about that would actually be not a perfect metaphor because he's ignoring the pandemic and the massive loss of life, and he's just only spending time on the phone doing everything he can to try to overturn the outcome of the election, which was over a month ago.
He's incapable. People have to understand this person is not capable of caring about you. It's not even a choice. It's not a choice. In the same way that I can't care about someone in arbitrarily Bangladesh who broke his ankle yesterday, or whatever, in Austria, who was walking down the street and he got hit by a car. That happened somewhere in Austria. Somebody got hit by a car yesterday.
I mean, probably.
I can't care about that person as much as I want to. I understand that it's a tragic thing, but I can't have an emotional connection to it because I have no ability to fully internalize it. Trump is like that, but for every single thing that does not affect him personally. The way you feel about somebody getting hit by a car in Austria is the way that Trump feels about every single person who is not Donald Trump. And you have to process that. People have to stop wondering, why is he not talking about it? Because he doesn't care. The only reason he talks about it at all is because he thinks that it will benefit him personally to be seen talking about it.
Absolutely. Well said. But the thing that's way worse, far worse, is how many Republicans in Congress, forget the right-wing media, forget the average Trump-supporting American, the Republicans in Congress overwhelmingly supporting an attempt by the Attorney General of Texas and 17 other attorneys general to overturn the election. Like, they're all on board. It's not all, but most of them are on board with this. Trump, because of everything you just said about him psychologically, okay, we get it. We know. But all these other guys...
Yeah, well, I don't remember who said it. Someone very smart had posted something about how as the election becomes further and further clarified, as it becomes no longer in doubt, as it becomes very obvious that Biden will be inaugurated, et cetera, and so forth. Conversely, you will see the rhetoric get even crazier on the right. Because first of all, there is that core group of crazies who just want to elevate things and talk about Civil War and, taking out Democratic politicians or even Republican politicians, et cetera. Yeah. But even the rank and file, quote unquote, normal Republicans will elevate their crazy rhetoric because they understand Biden's going to be president either way. So there's in their minds, on a personal political level, there's nothing to be lost by it and everything to be gained by it. If you are a cynical but not mentally ill Republican, you will sign on to all 106 or 108 of those Republicans in the House today who filed that amicus brief about the Texas suit. They're not all expecting that Donald Trump is going to get a second term. They know it's over, but because they know it's over, that frees them to virtue signal. It's what it is. It's virtue signaling. All the things that they say liberals do, they are virtue signaling to the Trump base. Look at me. I was there for Trump. And so therefore everybody's like, why are they so scared of Trump? They're not scared of Trump. They're scared of Trump's voters because they can't win without them.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely accurate. But it's also this kind of Faustian bargain where it's like, if we're going to overturn other states' elections, then we're setting a precedent where they can do that to us in the future, which would seem like a bad idea. Yes, but they also don't have any compunction about calling out future bad behavior of their opponents and forgetting completely that they were the ones who set the tone. And you can see that playing out right now with, Joe Biden's nominees and certain people on the right crying, oh, that person's an extremist. They're like, are you kidding?
Because the point is not to be correct. The point is to acquire and maintain power.
To win. It. Yeah.
There is no, we have to stop pointing out hypocrisy, or not stop pointing out, but stop expecting that to matter.
The thing that I hate about that is, and I don't know what psychological, analysis this is, but it's like, if you're a hardcore Trump supporter, how do you feel about it if your team cheats to win the softball game or the football game? Are you also like, will you do anything to win, or will you play by the rules and the person who is best wins that game? Like, where does that principle?
We'll be curious to see whether that trickles down. I think because politics seems so abstract and it's more about the sort of totem aspect of politics, like it doesn't affect your day-to-day life, that it feels almost like, well, it's fine to cheat at politics because that's just politics. It's not like I'm cheating at Monopoly with my family. It'll be interesting to see if that erosion of kind of agreed upon principles of honesty and fair play, it'll be interesting to see if that trickles down into the way your relatives and neighbors and people who are Trump supporters if it will become impossible to play a game of Monopoly with these people.
The most fascinating thing continues to be the fact that right-wing media folks and Donald Trump are screaming overturn the election, and the Republicans who are Trump supporters who are running the election, whose job it is to make sure the election is secure and that there aren't lines, specifically say in Georgia, are saying, listen, we voted for you. We supported you. I even gave you money, but there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do. You're commanding that I overturn the election, but why? For what reason? You lost. More people voted for the other person. I wish that weren't the case, but there's nothing I can do. Meantime, the right-wing talkers and the Ted Cruz's of the world are making these kind of demands and these legal demands, but none of them is based on any kind of evidence of fraud or of any reason. There's no reason to overturn the outcome of the election. And the Republicans who voted for Trump that ran the election are saying, what can I do? It would be illegal and wrong for me to do the thing that you're telling me to do. It's fascinating to watch people demand them to do that. They can't. Nothing they can do.
Well, and again, though, it's like it's for somebody like a Rush Limbaugh or a Sean Hannity, it's a win-win proposition to demand that these people do these things that they can't legally do. Because one, either they do them and great, or two, they don't do them. And now I can say that Trump didn't lose and therefore I didn't lose.
And also, I can get better ratings anyway when there's someone in opposition in power. Like, because I can just shit on Biden. You know, the conservatives always do better when there's a Democrat in office and vice versa, I think.
But this is why, you know, we've talked about this in the past. It's super important. And I worry about Biden in this capacity. It is super important that a penalty is paid for this behavior. And I'm not saying just, you know, as retribution or revenge. There has to be clear evidence to these people that these tactics not only are not successful, but work to their disadvantage. There has to be some sort of negative consequence to this action.
Well, you would think, and I don't know why, I don't know shit about legal issues, but I have heard a little bit about this, that you shouldn't be able to bring these crazy cases to courts. And if you do it over and over, you'd be like, you're disbarred. You're wasting everybody's time by filing bullshit lawsuits. I thought there was some legal terms for that or consequences for that. But how
there's that rep from Jersey. I don't remember his name, who appealed to the New York and the bar of various states, trying to get Giuliani and a bunch of other lawyers involved in this, Jenna Ellis and et cetera, disbarred, or at least to have that examined. And I kind of wonder, where is the bar on this stuff? Like,
what
are you doing? What is your purpose?
Representative Bill Pascrell cited fraud and misconduct in his complaints against Rudy Giuliani. Congressman seeks to have Rudy Giuliani disbarred over attempts to overturn the election. Yeah, it's going nowhere, probably, right?
Probably, but at least you think that if he can at least force the and I don't know,
frivolous lawsuit.
Obviously, I don't know whether the state bars, if there's any sort of governing body that governs the entire bar organization, or if it literally is just a federal thing where New Jersey has a bar, New York has a bar, Mississippi has a bar, et cetera. But a press release, at least addressing this, would be nice. Yeah. You know, where is the New York bar on Rudy Giuliani's conduct?
The threshold for disbarring a lawyer is high, reserved for only the most heinous instances of misconduct, and happens infrequently. And when it does happen, disbarment is harsh discipline. Washington Post is what I'm reading from. Yeah, one would think. Why is it that all of Trump's lawyers and all these evil, horrible people that are destroying America in so many different ways, when they get COVID, they bounce right the fuck back? And when so many amazing people I know have lost someone that they love.
Yeah, I mean, the way Giuliani talked about it a couple of days ago, like, you know, I had the exact same treatment that Trump had. And there's like, stop being stupid. Come into the hospital. We'll bang it out in 3 days. And it's like, God damn it. If anything wants me, you know, if anything encourages me to get a pitchfork and a torch and just start throwing bricks through windows, like I can't imagine anything as radicalizing as that. And
why?
Trump's defense. Well, in Trump's defense, Trump is the president of the United States. He needs, you know,
he has access to the best care.
Yes, exactly. It needs the best healthcare. Yeah. Global security depends on the United States president receiving the best healthcare that we can provide. Why the fuck does Rudy Giuliani meet that threshold?
Or Chris Christie?
No idea.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yep.
And it's, it'll be interesting to watch as the vaccines are distributed. Those are going to be the next battles. I think we all kind of understand that healthcare workers need to be the first line, the first batch.
I don't think we use the phrase, I think we all agree or understand that anything anymore. I think most people would hopefully think that, although I read 50% of FDNY firefighters are saying they're not going to get the vaccine. I'm like, wait, what's that all about? And I tweeted, can you still call yourself the bravest if you don't get vaccinated? And there's a little backlash for that, taking a shot at the fire department. They're like, they're all they're all jaded because of 9/11. I'm like, nah, it's not the same. It's not the same.
No, it's not the same at all. It'll be interesting. The second tier of people to receive, there's been some controversy. Is it going to be the elderly or will it be essential workers? And if we're talking essential workers, what does that mean?
Right.
Well, I think there was some motion that would somehow include day traders, or that would include Wall Street traders.
Can see that getting
which, there was some hubbub about that.
Let me vaccinate those guys, by the way.
But if we were really just being completely straightforward about this and what is going to do the most good for the most people, the next batch of people should be people at the post office and people at the grocery stores and the delivery guys and all those people that have no choice but to interact with people on a day-to-day basis. But that to me is what the next political fight is going to be. Because you're like, wait, you're telling me that some illegal immigrant who delivers for the local Chinese place is going to get the vaccine before my grandmother? And that's, that's going to be the next wave of fights.
Who's going to be the first rich, famous person that we found out jumped the line?
Boy. I think that there'll be an onslaught. I think there won't be one. I think it'll be a whole lot of them.
That'd be really interesting.
Some douchebag financier that you've never heard of.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm quite certain that, what's the Mercers, somebody like that. The Koch brothers.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think
like that.
The thing,
Sheldon Adelstein.
He's still with us.
I think he is technically. I think
Ted Cruz,
like a floating head in a jar.
Isn't it weird that Ted Cruz is behind this lawsuit? Texas senator. The other Texas senator thinks it's crazy. By the way, John Cornyn, who's an extremist, still thinks this is crazy. But it's so crazy to me that Ted Cruz and Lindsey Graham too have been so, what's the word, Christian, to Donald Trump?
Sycophantic.
So paying such fealty, being his carrying on his orders because
Cuck-esque.
Yes, that's the best one because of what Trump did to him and, talked about his father and his wife. And then, he himself, Ted Cruz, called Trump all kinds of horrible names and liar and so on. And now look at him. It's like, he's got to be one of the second worst, Ted Cruz.
Oh, Ted Cruz is just a repulsive human being in every way, shape, and form. Like, there's nothing redeeming about Ted Cruz that I've never. Other than maybe he quotes The Simpsons every once in a while.
Oh yeah,
that's like. But even that is repulsive in its own way. It's like, okay, clearly you weren't actually watching The Simpsons, or else you'd know that you would be the villain in every episode.
Well, my concern about the vaccine is less about who ethically should get it, and that argument, although that's an important point and question, and more about who's gonna what are enough people gonna get it. Like, this stupid fucking country does not realize that vaccines are a miracle, a scientific miracle, and no treatment or medicine is as effective as vaccines. And we just take them so for granted, and we're so brainwashed by so much bullshit that will enough people get it to have the kind of effect that it matters. And it'll be interesting to see what percentages of people get vaccinated in different countries.
Yeah,
how far is the anti-vax movement gone in other nations,
Yeah, this sounds morbid now, but if COVID acted upon the body like polio did, where
or Ebola.
People were crippled.
Yep.
And young, not just old people, but young people.
Yep.
I think polio affected younger people more than older people. And the same with the Spanish flu of 1918. It affected younger people more than older people. It would be very different. But there's so much about the way COVID attacks people that makes it easy to explain away and to write off. And I don't know what I don't know. And I'm sure this is easily Googleable, but if I have the vaccine and you don't, do I need to worry about you at all? Because I'm vaccinated. Because there is part of me that thinks, okay, you don't want the vaccination? Then go fuck yourself. We're all going to get it and you don't have to, and live your life. I have the feeling, the way that health officials, health experts refer to this, that is not really.
Well, one of the issues
case.
is that a lot of people can't get vaccinated for any number of reasons because they have comorbidities against a vaccine. And they thereby are still vulnerable. And
they're depending on the rest of us to get it. So
that's my understanding, and someone will correct me if I'm wrong on that. But yeah.
I know. And there was that case of a couple people with severe allergies having a negative reaction to it, which of course is just
expected.
I mean, it was expected. That's going to happen, but it's terrible PR at this sort of crucial moment. But
boy, do I hope Giuliani has a bunch of allergies.
I'm sorry?
Boy, do I hope Giuliani has a lot of allergies.
Well, I remember seeing some. We
can't get the vaccine in your veins, sir. I don't have veins.
Sir, you have no veins.
Put it in my wing.
But I mean, you're going to have to see a bunch of young celebrities on camera. Country music stars.
Yep.
Rappers. Just you're going to have a real PR offensive.
Yep.
About having public figures on camera taking the vaccine.
Yep.
Hopefully enough of them will come through, but that's the problem with social media, that this is not something that anyone had to factor in during the polio, era or the Spanish flu, or, you didn't have just some idiot who could go and just reach millions of people and spout off some crazy theory. So the death of expertise is kind of rearing its ugly head.
So is, and it's such a huge problem. It's such a weird thing too. I was arguing with my daughter about this. She's like, "What do you know? You're not a doctor." I'm like, I just talk, but I talk to 10. I just talk to 10. That's what I do know, and I don't know. I don't know how to question them. I don't know how I ask questions.
But I am capable of regurgitating what smart people say, and this is what the smart people say.
Yeah. And this is the collection of information I have. What do you have? What do you have? You got nothing. You didn't talk to any doctors.
You have that dumb Jersey or whatever Yonkers lady who sits in her car, that fucking, I'm talking about that lady on social media. She's like a personal trainer or something, but she's like she's a Trump person.
I think I know who you're talking about.
Those are now considered sort of expert sources.
Oh, my daughter,
that's what we're fighting against.
My daughter comes and, all they get their information from is like kids now is like TikTok. My daughter's asked me at least 3 times. She's like, "Are you sure Joe Biden's not a pedophile?" I'm like, Where are you getting? Where are you hearing this? Why is this a question? I mean, that's what they're seeing. And you have to, if they didn't have me to disabuse them of that, they would go down whatever road that was presented to them, because nothing's regulated. Anybody can say anything they want, anywhere they want, and people are vulnerable to it.
The world we live in, my friend.
What else, Christian Finnegan? Is there anything else from this week that we missed that we need to discuss? We talked about the politics, the lawsuits, a little bit about media, why Rudy Giuliani is still alive, vaccines, effectiveness.
I've been rewatching The Sopranos. That has been the past.
Never watched it. Watched a few episodes and watched a lot of scenes, but never watched the series. Never watched The Wire. I have been binging a show that probably not many people have, but I don't watch much. But I've been watching the hell out of the most violent thing I've ever seen, called The Boys on Amazon Prime.
I saw season 1.
Corrupt superheroes, corporate superheroes.
Yeah. I felt the way about that I feel about comic books in general, which is great ideas, great concepts.
Yep.
Shitty characters, shitty dialogue.
Yep. Yep, that's all true.
You know,
can't stop
and
watching.
kind of a little too pleased with itself. Like, see what we're doing now?
Yep. There's a lot of truth to that.
You see, what we're doing right now works on multiple levels.
So you have to go back and find old things. Are you out of new things?
No, I'm not. I don't know why. I hadn't watched The Sopranos since the original run, and I don't know why. There's 50 things I want to watch, but I guess it's like a comfort food kind of thing. It's something I can kind of have my laptop open and be doing stuff while it's on. Because I've already seen it, you know.
Yeah, I like that.
But then I kind of got sucked in. I'm in the final season right now. I'm just trying to muscle through. I think I watched 5 episodes yesterday.
That's awesome. Well, let me ask you though, what you think the forecast is for live performance returning. I think I've told you one of my best friends. This guy's in Australia, and I talk to him like every day on the Polo app. And he and his wife last night went to the premiere of a theatrical of a show, in a theater, and. Mm-hmm. It's Australia. Like they're acting, you know, pretty normal. And I don't think Broadway comes back till the fall, if then, much less stand up. What's the word on the street with live performance returning? Predictions.
Well, in New York, at least, there's this bill that just got passed or is in the process of getting passed, referring to open culture, which basically just means outdoor arts and entertainment. So if I had to guess, and this is a not completely educated guess, but, you know, being around my wife who's intimately involved in this stuff, I would say that outdoor shows are going to return in the spring.
Yep.
And then indoor shows, I'm kind of arbitrarily looking at July 4th as for when that's going to start. But I don't think it's going to happen all at once. I don't think there's going to be it's not going to be like VE Day where everyone's just like, yay, let's all go to, you know, a packed concert. It's going to be sort of, you know, at 50% and then, you know, gradually ease back in. But I'm thinking by the end of the summer, we will be at a point where people are living their lives in a normal way again, I think. Whether that means people will go back to doing the things. You know, I was joking with some friends on Twitter yesterday about how the karaoke explosion of late 2021 is going to be insane, you know, because I don't really enjoy doing karaoke, but the idea of doing karaoke right now is just elating to me. Like I would love to just be at a stupid karaoke bar singing, you know, China Girl.
Yeah.
Or something.
You know, I think that's the bar is so low and we, you know, for the types of things, the things that we would never do, or maybe even took for granted before, and the normal times are now like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to do that thing I normally
So I think
would've.
a lot of people are going to act like that, but there might be some people who just are like, you know what, I learned how to cut that stuff out of my life, and I'm not going to come back until next year, and I'm no longer interested. You know, movie theaters, I have no idea what the future of movie theaters is going to be.
What is that controversy? Do you follow that controversy about
the Warner Brothers thing?
Yeah. What is that? Can you help me understand that and then give me your opinion on it? Because I don't know how to feel.
Well, Christopher Nolan done a deep dive on this.
Christopher Nolan, the director.
You know, Warner Pictures or Warner Brothers writ large announced that all of their 2021 releases are going to come out online the same day they come out in theaters, as opposed to, you know, usually, you know, the theaters have an exclusivity for a period of time. Mm-hmm. You know, it used to be that then they would come out on video. You'd see them at the Blockbuster 4 months later or whatever. But now they come online 4 months later, et cetera. Warner's has decided to ditch that for 2021, that it's all going to come out simultaneously. And some movies have done that over the past few years. But generally speaking, obviously, the movie theater industry, that's like a death knell for them. And also a lot of stars, you know, are players in the Hollywood world, think that is a horrible precedent to set, and that you're basically going to destroy the live movie experience, which is already taking hits left and right over the past generation.
Right.
You know, from Warner's perspective, to me, it's going to happen. You know, you've made these movies, you spent a lot of money on them. Recouping some money is better than recouping no money.
Exactly.
You can't keep just putting this shit off. They've delayed the Wonder Woman movie like 4 times. They delayed that Christopher Nolan movie like 4 times. Eventually, you just got to be like, you know what? I'm going to get what we can get out of this. If that means putting it online and we only lose $100 million as opposed to $200 million, so be it. That's what it is.
I understand if someone spent, like a director, months, maybe years on pre-production, then production, and then, editing, post-production, it's oftentimes over a year. Sometimes it's a lifetime. You come up with. I get that, but at the same time, I mean, you're working for a studio. In this case, you don't get to decide. They got to recoup whatever they can, and it can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
I'm not saying it's a good. I mean, it's a bad thing. It's a bad thing. It will result in lower movies won't make as much, which will make them even more risk averse than they already are now. It's a bad trend for cinema in general. Yeah, but it's a reality. And the question is, what happens in 2022? I think it's worse. It's the kind of thing where the toothpaste is out of the tube and you can't put it back in again. Do people come to expect that movies just come out online the day that they're released? Can you go back to the way it was? Yeah, I mean, I've always argued for that because it's my personal preference. I don't really like to go to a movie theater. But that's not, I don't even think that's most people. I just like the convenience of being able to watch something at home. I don't care. Well, it's increasingly, I think that's also what it is that it's increasingly the way people like to consume movies. Yeah. But financially, it's a huge problem because think about it. You're watching, you decide, okay, I'm going to rent the new Wonder Woman movie when it comes out in a few weeks. You spend $12.95 for it and your whole family is sitting watching it. Okay, well, think about how much money that would represent in a movie theater. Yep. 4 adult tickets, popcorn, sodas, the whole experience. It's a fraction. The studios are recouping, or the entire industry is recouping a fraction of what it would recoup in a theater. So let me just tell you this because I think you'll appreciate it before I let you go. A buddy of mine told me the other night that he was home alone and he went on a movie marathon. He ate a huge bowl of popcorn and drank a whole bottle of wine. And then at 3:00 in the morning, he woke up and threw up all over the place. Got very sick. Guy's an idiot, isn't he? Wait, what happened? My buddy's stupid asshole. He drank a bottle of wine, ate a bowl of popcorn, and got very sick. Isn't he an idiot? It's you, isn't it, Peter? No. I'm not an idiot. I know. I'm 45. I think I know a little better, buddy, than to drink a full bottle of wine and eat a huge bowl of popcorn. But this guy. Well, that's the problem. Such a rookie thing. I told him more substantial. Huh? What should I tell me? You should have eaten something more substantial than popcorn. I did. I had ravioli too. And then I had the popcorn. I never drank so much wine. I drank it over 6 hours. It's still, You put the brown things in your tum-tum. Doesn't matter. Does not matter. They don't like to be there together, apparently. I was laughing while I was getting sick because it was so stupid what I had done to myself. In the Dias cast at that point. There's You're just what was I? I can't believe I did that. I am blessed in that I have an irrational fear of vomiting. I used to. Ever since I was a kid. I hate it. And that has helped me because the minute I've been drinking too much or whatever, and I feel any slight That's why I never drank. Done. Over. That's why I didn't drink to begin with. I was so afraid of throwing up. I'm telling you, in the last maybe literally 5 or 6 years, I've just finally come to terms with it when I got the flu or whatever, a couple times when I drank. And I would say the same thing. Yep. I have acknowledged that, yes, you do feel better and it's not the end of the world to throw up if you're sick or whatever. But I still have this just childhood. I think because probably I saw some kid puke in school once and it maybe traumatized me. It'll do it. There is, I have this weird thing, and I know we're going to get off. And this is completely going to dumb down our entire conversation. That's fine. I already started it. I have this weird thing where libraries, the smell of old books makes me have to poop. The smell in libraries or used bookstores, things like that. And then I leave and I stop having to poop. It's like a weird psychological thing. But that was always torture for me in school, having to spend time in the library, because I also had a thing where I would not poop. I could not poop in a public restroom. I had that too. That's pretty common. But that I traced specifically to an instance that happened when I was in second grade. And I was standing at the urinal and there was some kid in the stall taking a poop, and 3 kids ran in and jumped up onto the side of the stall and started banging on it and throwing crap at him and making fun of him. And I can trace it literally back to that. I will never be that kid. Well, I was that kid, guilty, when I'll never forget my buddy Chris was on the can
and we would wet up those old school brown paper towels. We'd make them all wet, and we would just pelt him while he was in there.
Come on, man.
He'd always beat me up after. He'd get the final word, but it was so worth it.
It's so funny how it's like we all sort of fetishize our childhood traumas in the kids who treated us badly, and we all conveniently forget about the people who we traumatized. You know, it's like, oh, this kid was so mean to me. It's like, there's 5 adults out there for whom you are that person.
Yep, for sure. Christian Finnegan, everybody. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks, buddy.
All right.
Talk to you later. Bye.
There you go. Christian Finnegan on Twitter at Christ Finnegan. Wajahat Ali and the news every day. This is almost 2 hours worth of show of content. I don't expect you to listen to the entire thing every day. Who has that kind of time? If you do, you're a VIP, and I really appreciate it, and I'd love to hear from you, and I'll thank you personally. But every day I'm putting out as much content as I can so that you have something to choose from. Hopefully you'll like both the guests and the news, but at least you'll like one of those things, and that's why and how I'm doing the show each and every day. I cannot do it without your support, because while the show is available for free, it is not cheap. I spend most of my life in the shed making this show every day. I produce every part of it. I write it. Well, I don't write anything, but I prepare for it. I host it, I edit it, I promote it, and at some point I'd love to hire someone to help me work with me, but we're not there yet. We need more subscriptions, so please sign up now. Go to the paid subscription link in the show notes, or go to patreon.com/Pete Dominic. And then you'll be supporting independent media as well as become part of our community if you'd like. You can join us for the Zoom Hangouts and the Discord platform, which is always there so that you'll never be alone. It's a great community of people. We had an awesome time talking last night, and every Thursday at 8 on Zoom, and you might add more of these and do a lot more of it. I love it. I love you. Thank you so much for your support, allowing me to do what I love, and that is to learn along with you every day how to navigate this crazy journey we call life. I love you. You're not alone. Be the change you want to see in the world. I'll talk to you next week. Take it away, stand-up supporter and music legend John Carroll.
Trees, you got to stand up. Hey, you've been sitting so long, you got the creaky knees, you got to stand up. Stand up. I think your driving wheels been leaking grease. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know what's right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You got to stand up. That's right. You got to rise up. You got to stand up. You got to stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear when all you hear is a lie. Don't get up off of your butt, down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up, stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up, stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Oh, you better stand up, stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. This is the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up, they had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We got to let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment. and listen well, and it'll tell you not to run